Hi, welcome to Sam and Vinnie Save the World. I'm Vinnie Falcone.
And I'm Sam Mamagani. Today we're here with Julian Stern. He is a neighborhood council member as well as someone who's working with the homeless population in Los Angeles.
Hope you enjoy.
So just like a softball question to start, how do we solve homelessness?
Very easy opening question.
Right.
Just,
Like 20 words or less.
yeah.
I'm glad you
15?
brought me here.
10.
I think I'm the only person who has it figured out. I think the biggest thing that could be happening that's not happening as much is all the different sort of teams of people who are working on it being able to talk to each other better. Yeah. Like I am in the lowest form of government that is still technically government, but it's all volunteers. But I was elected, neighborhood council.
Yeah.
And we were through the neighborhood council. We were doing a weekly like shower program, or supporting a weekly shower program put on by this nonprofit called Shower of Hope.
Yeah.
And we would just bring snacks and ask people what they needed and stuff. And the city council, I found out, had no idea that we were doing it. And they were like, "Oh, it's great to know about this so that we can like send people your way." And I was like, "Why? You should have known about this though." Yeah. And that's not to blame them. It's just like there are so many people working on all their different facets of it. And I think communication and all like rowing in unison is very important.
So my immediate question from that is, how did Showers for Hope get funding?
At that location, I have volunteered with Shower of Hope. I am not currently volunteering with them, but they're a great organization. They run 50 locations where they serve, they have a shower trailer, a mobile shower that people can come shower, which is, a necessary thing if you don't have access to a shower. Mm-hmm. And it depends on the location. I think there are some where, there's a church, a synagogue, a mosque that's allowing them to be there, and they don't have to act. I'm not sure exactly what they need to get paid for. I know that at that one, I think it was the Department of Public Works at Pan Pacific Park who was paying for it. But there are a variety of different funding sources. And
to kind of give like the audience a quick, it'll be in the description, obviously, of like, what your title is, but just maybe kind of walk us through like what your title is. You joked about being at like the bottom of the bottom, but obviously still a very important position. Could you maybe like kind of walk through what your, like what your position is, and kind of like,
he's I'm replaceable. Yeah. Let's be honest. I'm replaceable. You're replaceable.
There's no interview. You just say, I want to do it.
They don't even.
Maybe just like and kind of go through the hierarchy of what the different ranks are, if you will, or positions.
Yeah, I cannot do that comprehensively, but I can try. I'll say that my background in getting involved in homelessness is that my dad ran a homeless outreach center my whole life in Georgetown. I'm from just outside DC, and he sort of fell into it, as I understand it. He was working at a soup kitchen in his like early 20s, and then this organization wanted a bunch of I think like churches and synagogues in Georgetown wanted to help the homeless, and so they needed someone to run it, and he was there, and he started doing it, and he ran it for 30 years. Oh, wow. And so I was just around. Growing up, I didn't know it was weird. Like for the first few years of my life, at least, to not like my dad knew the names of homeless people that we saw on the street and stuff. And like I would go to, when they had a shelter during the winter, I would like go to the dinner with him and stuff. And so I was just like very exposed to that. And then I moved to LA for comedy and writing, as people do in their early 20s, and I was just an absolute delinquent, no, not service oriented at all. And at some point, I was like, I should try to get back into that, especially in the past 5 years. I've been in LA for over 12 years, and seeing it just like become more of a visible problem. Obviously, homelessness is always an issue, and so I was like, hey, where is work being done? And every time I like looked up a nonprofit or something, they would invite me to some event, and the events were always like celebrations of like, hey, we did this thing. And I was like, look, I'm happy to eat the free burrito, but like, when is like, it seems like we need more help. Like, how can I help and not just come to the celebrations? And so it was just trial and error of reaching out to, that's how I found out about Shower of Hope. I just DM'd them on Facebook, and they were like, hey, we have a location at MacArthur Park.
We found out about you, man. We were just DMing, asking around looking for people who were involved.
Right.
So I guess the question now is like, so is it more of a sense of feeling like you're committed to your community why you want to be involved, or is it actually, do you have an emotional tie to homeless people? And the reason that I ask this is because as someone who lives in LA, I'll admit I've become desensitized over the last few years. Honestly, probably since COVID, I've started to become less empathetic when I view them because it's such a common thing that I become desensitized. And so why do you care and why should we care?
I mean, to be frank, I don't really give a shit if you care. Like, I don't care if I think of it as like people involved in the struggle and then civilians. And like, I understand if somebody has to be empathetic for their own, like, just like mental health, and they don't, all I really want from someone like that is to like not come make a big fuss at about an encampment if they don't want to be a part of the solution, which I see a lot of that happen at so I'm on the Mid-City West Neighborhood Council.
I already apologized.
So
I already said I'm sorry.
And look, I appreciate it. Was very eloquent. It had a very eloquent screed that no, I mean, the joke that I say on stage is that I love Neighborhood Council because I want to solve homelessness in LA, and because I like playing Model UN with the most bored, self-righteous maniacs who can walk to my house. And that's exactly what it's like. It is a, I don't know, 3 mile by 3 mile area, probably even smaller than that. And so like everyone's there. There are 99 neighborhood councils in LA. And so we get all of the like the local politics. Not the crazies. I'm one of the crazies. Like we are all there being crazy with each other.
He's not wearing pants. You can't see it from the way that we've framed this.
And I never will.
Yeah.
Never.
He refused. So,
He took a shit on the sidewalk, and I'm like, Channing has a bathroom. He's like, no, this is better.
I brought a bag.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I brought a bag for that.
You keep saying that. We don't know.
We haven't seen the bag yet.
I feel like I didn't answer either of your questions, but why do I think to some degree I became desensitized for a long time also, and then I don't know. I think I remembered, hey, I saw that it was getting worse, and for years I was like, yeah, I really gotta do that. I gotta find out a way to help, and then I just started emailing people. And once I got onto the neighborhood council, which anyone can do, you can go to meetings for your neighborhood council. I'm not sure which one we're in right now, but there definitely is one for this area. And if you live in the city of LA, you have one. And once you go to meetings and if you see something that you're like, wait, why don't we do that? Then somebody will say, "That great. Would you mind? Mm-hmm. Could you do that?" And once you're empowered to actually like start doing stuff, you realize that this is the only place that the change is going to come from. Like that's when we were supporting the Shower of Hope stuff at Pan Pacific Park. I had said, why don't we, like, nobody's coming to these showers. Let's like have coffee and snacks and just like see what people really need. And they said, great. Can you do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I can.
So then what happens? Do you pay for it and then expense it? Or I'm very curious about like, because there's like a lot of money that goes into this. So I'm just kind of curious like where it comes from, who approves it, where it goes. Like,
so for that, we have like each neighborhood council has a budget. And so, I mean, I just started with me and the two other people who were doing it. We just started paying for it, and we were like, we're getting a pizza and a box of coffee from Pete's. Like this podcast is sponsored by Pete's Coffee.
We aren't, please don't.
But you could give us some money.
Starbucks.
Help us out here.
We're sponsored by Starbucks and Kirkland.
Kirkland water.
Also, we have smaller waters if you want one.
Yeah,
please. Yeah, I actually no, I have some in my bag actually. We just started paying for it and figured out after a few weeks of it, like how to actually expense back. Because there's like, there's rules about how you can't pay for a certain amount of food. But we have a small budget.
No caviar at these meetings.
No caviar. No.
Yeah.
What are some things you guys are doing that you see are working, and maybe some efforts, if you want to share, that are consistent that you haven't really seen the rewards from?
So not in terms of what we directly are doing, but there are things called, I mean, like you'll hear people talking about sweeps, like homelessness, or encampment sweeps.
Okay.
Have you heard these terms at all? So like it basically means anytime that the, police or the city are coming through and saying, hey, you all have to move your tents. And the people who are actually doing the sweeps don't like to call them sweeps. They are various things called There's one called Care Plus, which a council member can enact, where they say, hey, we're going to do a care cleaning is where sanitation comes and like picks up trash. Care Plus, I think, is ironically named because it implies that there's more care, but really what they say is, hey, you need to pack up all of your shit and move for a few hours. We're not going to tell you exactly how long, and we're not going to specify exactly how far you have to be or have a place for it to be, but you need to move it all. And they give 3 days notice, but a lot of people don't hear about it, or they don't have the mental awareness to understand that that's actually happening. And so then they have a few hours notice and they lose shit and things are even more destabilized. And it does, they do pressure wash the street, which is good. But I don't think it's done in a way right now where where things are actually, I don't know, where they're doing it with care. Like, they also, like, a couple years ago...
Ruin Housey Plus was a bad name, though. They didn't have Ruin Tenty Plus was not as catchy.
Move Your
yet.
Shit Plus was not a great... Not a good marketing.
Get the fuck out United was not the right
Right. Yeah, no, these are all
It has
good
a good ring to it.
It does, yeah.
I would appreciate if there was just, because again, there comes back to the communication, because then you hear Care Plus and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, good, they're doing a Care Plus cleaning. That sounds, and then you're like pissed that everything looks dirtier than it did, and it's because people, there was one day recently where they were doing one, but sanitation didn't show up in time, so everyone had packed up their stuff, and then they were like, hey, we're actually going to come back in 3 days, and we can't be doing that. Like it's just making the problem worse. Yeah. When you force people to move without services, without helping them, then it's just going to be someone else's problem, and it's going to become a bigger problem, and then it's going to show up back on your doorstep. And so there's a lot of just pushing people around right now, and that's not working. I think things like when we were out there with the showers, we had to stop because the pool opened and there was a conflict with the park, which I love that park. But it sucked that we had to stop. But like when we were there, what is working is just saying, hey, what do you need? And I don't know how to get people what they need right now, but I know people who know more than I do about it. And so I'll call someone who works at one of these like service centers and say, hey, so-and-so needs a license, or so-and-so needs a phone. How do we do that? Oh yeah, you can apply for that phone on this website. And I start the application, and I say, hey, I need your identification. They say, oh, I don't have an ID. And so I call back and I say, hey, so-and-so needs an ID. And they say, okay, well, there's an ID. The DMV is doing like a satellite ID program at this library if you can get there in 45 minutes. And I can't get them there in 45 minutes right now. And so there's all this. I would love a document van, a DMV van that can show up with it. And then they do have these. But like, I think that's not going to fix everything. But so many times I've been trying to help someone fill out a shelter referral or get a phone, and they don't have the proper documents, and they are, they have all the documents, or like, they're legal and they have had all these papers at one time. They've just lost them for one reason or another, maybe because there was a sweep. But you can also, I lose shit all the time. And when you don't have a place that you live, you lose. So I would love a document van. And that's what I'm sort of like advocating for.
And with that, in addition to like qualifying for and submitting for Medi-Cal, like if there was like kind of like a joint thing where it's like you get your documentation of like, hey, you're missing your license, you're missing your birth certificate, social security, number, etc. You can get this, and then also apply for Medi-Cal, because I'm sure there's patients or people who are willing to get help, whether it be medical or addiction help, but they don't have the documentation to like prove that they are who they are to kind of start that process. Is that accurate? Yeah,
I think so. And I honestly don't know a ton about Medi-Cal, except for I will say most of the time when I have like, I think for the phone, Assurance Wireless is one of the phone programs, and the 2 or 3 times I've done it, someone has needed a Medi-Cal number, and they've actually known their Medi-Cal number. Okay. So like they have. I'm not saying that that's not an issue. It's not something that I've personally had to deal with.
That's for sure not their Medi-Cal number. Yeah. You're like, oh, you mean 997-254? And it's like, bro, that's a stolen identity.
So you're not wearing pants, but you know your Medical number.
Let me go over this.
Crazier things have happened.
Crazy how you have an ID with not your face on it. That's interesting.
And then in terms of like, moving them to a house, Because one of the articles you sent us, thank you for all that information, by the way, was that article from Houston where they housed like 25,000 people in a very short period of time. 2 years after the fact, the majority of them are still housed with those housing that they got them initially. So do you see that as being a viable way to, I guess, like, I wouldn't say solve the issue, but basically alleviate some of the, people living on the streets if there actually was housing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the biggest, or I don't know, 50% of the biggest problem is the fact that there's not enough housing and that we need to build more. And I believe, I actually reread that article this morning because I was like, I better know what I'm talking about if I send this to them. And I thought, I read someplace else that I was not able to find, but it was basically like, Texas being Texas and being like, you're not going to tell us what to do. They have much more lax zoning laws than we do.
Yeah.
And so it's much easier to build. And it's, are you from Texas?
No, but I've been there multiple times, and it's like a factory next to like a housing development.
Exactly. No,
they'll be fine.
Yeah.
The article that I read was like
wheels there, and then it's just like fucking. I don't know why I said that. That's not how Texans sound.
But they interviewed a family where it was like there was an amusement park next to just a residential home, and the roller coaster went over the backyard. So it's like there are obviously issues.
Fucking hilarious.
But it does make it so it's possible to build a lot of housing relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And that is like, so there are a lot of zoning laws that make it hard to build in LA.
I think my frustration. So I'm sure it goes back to what you were saying earlier, that the biggest issue is that there's a lack of communication between systems. And when the same systems that push people into homelessness aren't communicating with the systems that are dealing with homeless people and helping them and making their stay in being homeless a short time. Right. But I think what's frustrating is like when all of the homeless people are scattered, that makes it very difficult to bring all the systems to one place. Like you said, like a DMV van, but then that also doesn't help them get a cell phone, or that doesn't help them get a shower or anything like that. So why is it an issue to move and consolidate all the homeless people into one area where all of the systems can be reached? Like you were saying, like sometimes you'll be helping someone and then they'll get, what is it called? The Care Plus, a
Care Plus action will be taken. I don't know how they say it.
Care Plus action, a Care Plus sweep.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you can't find them anymore.
Yeah.
So what would be the issue of keeping all of the homeless people in one area?
Like a camp of some sort?
Yeah. No,
well, that would be the
real.
issue. Is that it would be an internment camp or like a refugee camp, and that you can't really like. It would probably be somewhat of a war crime.
Well, I guess I don't mean forced.
And what if we made them work but didn't pay them?
Right. Yeah. Unlike a large but there's a big house. They don't get to stay in that house.
No, but they say in a side house.
But they work for free.
Yeah,
they work for
also,
free.
we could use more railroads.
No, I don't mean. No, I didn't mean anything about forced staying. Yeah,
no, I know. Well, I think
a
to
central hub where they could go to get all the
resources
resources they need.
Yeah, or like, how come there aren't all of those sources being mobilized at Skid Row, where there's how many 20,000 homeless people? And
I don't know. Skid Row is certainly not my expertise, but I know that there are a lot of like Shower of Hope came out of a weekly meal program that was happening at Skid Row. So a lot of like, as far as I know, which is not a ton about Skid Row, but I think a decent amount of work does get done there, and there are a lot of services there. Mm-hmm. What we deal with in Mid-City West is actually sort of the opposite, which is we have, and Mid-City West it's basically like south of West Hollywood to the east of Beverly Hills, and then like San Vicente and La Brea are the borders of that area. So it's like, the Improv is there, the Grove, Fairfax Village, and it's a relative. I mean, no, it's a very affluent area, and so we don't have a lot of service providers there. And also, in order to move people, if someone got a Section 8 voucher, which is a housing voucher that you can get that is very hard to get, but technically can be useful.
Section 8 is for low-income housing. It basically covers a portion of a rent per month.
Yes.
So like it could cover like whatever, $1,800 a month, and then if you wanted to stay in a $1,900 a month apartment, you would need to be able to qualify for $100 a month.
Yes.
Payment.
And I think it probably covers less than that.
Yeah.
And the thing I'm not maybe you might actually know more than I do.
So I managed a housing or an apartment complex.
Oh,
for
great.
A while,
Then you know a ton.
Well, I don't remember how much it is, but I do think it is probably around like $1,600 a month or something like
Okay.
that. But maybe that's for families or something. So
Maybe.
a voucher. Yeah.
But yeah, rents are more expensive around where I am, and so it's harder
to cover a studio.
Yeah,
That's what's
but
required. Yeah.
to sort of circle back to your we wouldn't. It would logistically be hard and ethically wrong to make everyone go to one, 70,000 plus homeless people in LA County to go to be in one area. And you're not going to find any neighborhood that wants to be that.
Yeah.
And also a lot of people actually, like, contrary to popular belief, are living unhoused not so far from where they were recently in an apartment. And so I think it is important it would be great if we had a drop-in center in every mile, like the thing that my dad did, or like they have one called The Center in Hollywood. I call them whenever I'm like, how do I do this? And they will act as an address. So I was helping a woman get a phone, and the phone's going to get sent to them, and I will get the phone and bring it from them and bring it to her. But that's a place where people who live around there on the streets know that they can go, or even if they don't know, if you are in Hollywood and you meet someone looking for something, you can say, hey, have you heard of The Center? And then they know about it. And so it would be wonderful to have those all over the city.
So, yeah, I guess what I'm wondering is how to have like locations where homeless people have an opportunity to stay. How is that different than what they did in Houston, where they provided housing? Or if they are being pushed to a place where they have access to more resources, like those care centers and stuff like that, I guess what I'm wondering is, how would that be worse than getting swept? And then all of a sudden you are just removed from your place anyway. It's just you're not provided with anything else. Versus like if you're...
How would it be worse?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm thinking. Like, because I'm talking about like consolidating certain areas. I understand like the NIMBY, not in my backyard, like aspect of it. But like if they're being moved to a place where there are resources, where there's a DMV van and then a shower and all this kind of stuff, and it's not forced stay, but if they're given that opportunity and they're given transportation to those places, I guess what I'm wondering is, how is that less ethical than a sweep?
I don't think that place exists. I don't think that you could send all 70,000 homeless people to one place that would have services for all of them. And there isn't, I mean, just, if you think about like Skid Row and then like Fairfax Village, basically, we're right next to Beverly Hills. Those are Skid Row and then Mid-City West are like sort of two opposite ends of the spectrum, and they both have a homelessness problem. So there's not one place where like everything's being solved in LA. But I don't think either of them are great. Like I don't think sweeps the way that they're done now, or Care Plus visits the way that they're done now, are effective. And I think all of it is going to take a lot longer than anybody wants it to take.
Do you think that the problem is getting better or getting worse? Because I think it was definitely getting worse after COVID and during COVID.
Yeah.
But do you think now at this point, 3 years out, that it's getting better, or do you think it's getting worse?
I think it's that's too short of a scope to look at to even like say for sure. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm not the one who, and I don't think anyone can, you'll have like politicians talking about whether it's getting better or getting worse, and part of that they're gonna have to say one or the other based on what they,
depending on if they're trying to get elected for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're trying to get elected, it's getting worse. If they've
if they're running, it's getting worse, man. It's getting worse.
I'm seeing. I know that the HHH funding that we voted through like 7 or 8 years ago is actually like starting to get, like, houses are actually starting to be built. And that's good. I don't know. I think on my level, at the hyper local neighborhood council level, I'm seeing and trying to help facilitate conversations that are making making it better. I'm getting better at it. No, but I am. I mean, I think well, I don't want to go into too deep of specifics because I don't want to I'm not sure what are privacy issues. Although I don't know, but we had an encampment in the area.
His name is Gary.
Yeah, there's some Garys I could talk about.
5'8".
We had an encampment that a lot of neighbors were upset about.
Yeah,
and they were upset about it in the way that anyone is upset about an encampment generally, which is like, we don't want this here. I mean, it was very NIMBY, which I'm more of a YIMBY kind of guy, but I also know that anyone who is, even somebody who's like, I don't give a shit, arrest every single one of them, I'm scared. That's coming from a place of fear. And I think the sort of like depolarization of the conversation is to remember that everyone involved, even people who I think, or probably a couple of years ago thought like, oh, you have no empathy for another human being. They're just coming from a place of fear. They have empathy for human beings that I might not be aware of, that I might not know, that their neighbor who's really scared, that they've talked to that I haven't talked to. And so they brought a letter through our committee. The co-chair of the Homelessness, Renters' Rights, and Refugees Committee for Mid-City West, and they said, hey, we want this letter to go through, to be sent to the city council member. And I didn't really agree with what the letter was pretty vague, but I was like, I don't think much good is going to come of this letter. I think it should be rewritten and like with more effective, and I know that you all probably would really like some Care Plus visits. Here's why I don't think they're as effective, but like, I think we have to advocate for specific things. And they said, we really just want to be heard. Or I said, I'll vote it through if you really want to be heard. And everyone said they really wanted to be heard. 20 people were there. Somebody called the news. We were on the local news, which was very strange. And so we had that. It came to the whole neighborhood council last month. And we had a great conversation about what effective strategies we could actually add to it. And I wrote an amendment that just said, hey, could you, the city council member, please look into these things? And they were only things that people at the meeting had asked for. And there were some things like that I would consider sweepy, we'll call it. And there were some things, we also had other people who like work with mutual aid organizations that actually work with like directly with the unhoused people in that encampment and ask for what they need. And so they had ideas. And so I said, let's just say, hey, here's everything that everyone in our area wants you to look into the effectiveness of. And so we were able to add that. And we had somebody from the council member's office already at the meeting. So I was like, wait, you're the head of homelessness for Council Member Yaroslavsky. You've already read the letter in front of us just now. Why are we doing it? But we're actually like, we were able to add those specific things. And now that's on the public record. And now we'll all, whether it's something I agree with or not, anyone who had one of those ideas will be able to say, hey, you got this letter 2 months ago, 6 months ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever. Can we get an update on that? And that feels good to me. That feels better than how I've heard it going in the past.
And then in terms of, so obviously there's like a couple different issues when it comes to homelessness, right? First and foremost, it's the lack of dwelling, obviously. So the ability to be housed. And with that comes certain variables as to why they're not housed. Is it purely just a lack of funds? I mean, you can not have addiction, you cannot have mental illness and just not be able to afford to live based off of your income. So there's that aspect. There's obviously the mental illness, and there's also the drugs, drug addiction, I'm sure other reasons as well. But in terms of like identifying the problem and then being able to treat the problem, how effective are the current resources you have to do so?
I mean, clearly not that effective. But again, I'm at the lowest rung. It's almost not even a rung, but I am, working with people one-on-one in different capacities. And it is a lot of all I can sort of continue giving you is anecdotes. And like, there was somebody who there was a person, I'm just going to try to strip it of all possible details. There was a person who I met who I had reason to believe was dealing with some sort of mental illness. In my conversations with them, I, would get them food. I saw them probably once a week, but they said that there was a place that was not LA where they had family that they could go stay with, and they were just trying to get there. And I had a reason to believe that yes, if I just I could probably give them money for a train ticket or a plane ticket to that place. I felt confident that I didn't care if they spent it on something else, but I felt confident that that wasn't going to solve that problem that they were trying to solve. And so I called somebody at the center and said, "Hey, are there any like tools to actually, if somebody actually lives in LA and has another place that they want to go to, and they say that they have people there, can we do that?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can send." I forget exactly what it's called, but it's some sort of like relocation program where you have to reach out to the people on the receiving end. Everyone,
wait a minute. Hold on. Let's rewind that a little bit.
And then there's a chain link fence that slams behind them.
No, they get sent to a ranch where their family is.
Roll call.
The good thing is that you make sure that there's somebody actually on the receiving end.
His words, not ours.
Hey. We're going to look into all this.
And I don't remember what it's called. I do think relocation was in the was in the name. It was just the name of the form.
I love like the terms, by the way, like sweep, care plus.
Oh yeah,
it's all so political. It's all very like euphemistic.
Yes, and I think that the like decision as to which word to use is always going to be a little bit political, and sometimes we get involved in meetings and I have seen, if you know who you are, when I say this, you know who you are, and I love you, and it's okay. But there are people on the like more governmental side who, when somebody in the meeting says a sweep, they say, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. When you said sweep, what were you talking about?" And I'm like, yeah, I had to like snap at the meeting last, and I was like, "It's Care Plus. You know what they're talking about, okay?" Like let's because it's just such a like it is. The difference in language is understandable, but it doesn't have to be used for obstruction. And sometimes people use it for obstruction because and I don't know, they probably weren't intentionally being obstructionist about it, but they're like, "Oh, I don't want that like negative connotation." Yeah. But there's a negative connotation to calling something that is done without care a Care Plus visit as well. And so you sort of, it's kind of a lose-lose, but only if you let it be. But yeah, the language is all hilarious.
So basically, if
well, it makes it hard for people who aren't involved to know what the hell is going on. Like if I'm the resident of your neighborhood and they're like, that they're gonna do a Care Plus in their Care Plus activity in this thing, I'm gonna be like, what the hell are we talking about here? Like it makes it hard for people to be informed, I guess, on what actually is what.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, communication. And it's not just communication, but that is the thing that I think everyone agrees we need to find a way to build more housing. Everyone agrees we need to get better mental health services. Yeah. People are not focusing, I think, as much on the one thing that we can all kind of change a little bit, which is like communicating a little bit better. Yeah.
And then just to circle back real quick on what you were saying. So if the person on the receiving end,
so they said there was so it was like if they have a family member, like they have to prove that they how and why they know this person and that they have a space in which to put them up. Like we're genuinely not trying to just move our homelessness problem to another place. Then there's funding that I can't remember exactly how they were going to get the funding, but like there are mechanisms to and it's not that, I think it was either from the city or from the nonprofit just having the funds for it, but like there are mechanisms to actually make that happen. But I didn't know about that. And I had to run into the problem in order to find out about the solution. And that's something that like I would love to do at some point, is just what I'm trying to do is figure out, okay, in a perfect world, magic wand, have every single problem that a homeless person could be dealing with. and know what the current solution is to that,
An algorithm.
or if there's no solution to it. No, I literally just mean like a fucking Google Doc, so that, like you said, if you hear that there's a Care Plus, you can look that up and understand what that is a little bit better. If you walk by somebody who lives around the corner from you and they say, hey, I'm trying to get to San Diego. I've got family there. I'm raising and if you knew, oh wait, there's actually a way to do that.
Just Control F that shit.
Yeah.
Like issue, and then here's the resolve. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's where I think, like, you know, mental health, housing, communication is actually like a vital part of it, because there are solutions and sometimes they take a long time to get to.
It's like it's difficult because the macro solutions are so dependent on what the micro issues are. It seems like,
right?
Because everyone is going to have a completely different story and need different things and have different barriers along the way. So I think it's hard because I want to use broad strokes so that I can understand the issue, and you can't really use them for a lot of cases.
No, but I don't think they're all so micro that it's impossible to figure out. Like I have met many people who are like, oh, my phone just got stolen. And so I know that it takes like 3 weeks to get a phone off of one of these free phone programs, and hopefully I can find I'm in a situation right now where I've gone through the application for somebody and they're going to get a phone, and I hope that they're where they were, and I try to check and make sure that I'm like, that they don't go someplace else, but I won't know the day that I get their phone in my hand that I'll be able to find them.
For the people at home, let's maybe talk about why it's important to have a phone, because we've talked about that, but maybe just for everyone's knowledge. I mean,
Totally. Yeah. I feel like I haven't heard that argument as much recently, but I have heard people say, well, maybe if they didn't spend money on their cell phone, then they'd be able to have a house. And I'm like,
I've heard that a lot.
What cell phone do you have and what house do you have that those are the same price?
My $1,400 cell phone a month.
Yeah.
I'm spending almost $15K on this bad.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just for all the same reasons. Like, everything is harder when you don't have a home, and everything is harder when you don't. Like, we all know what it's like when you're out and your phone dies, and it's like, oh shit, how am I going to get to where I'm
or my
going?
fiance will never. I mean, she never answers her phone. It's like it's hard to contact my lovely fiance. But like, I'm at the food store and it's like, hey, what kind of bread do you want? And she doesn't pick up her.
I'm happy to
phone.
Fill out an application with her to get her an insurance wireless phone. Yeah, no, she probably would need to have like Medicaid or something like that. She probably doesn't qualify.
Can we relocate her?
Yeah. Can she go to San Diego or maybe a farm in Wyoming? No, I'm just kidding. She's the best.
She sounds great.
Doesn't pick up her fucking phone.
But yeah, all of the or just text. Within 5 minutes. Don't make. I don't know. I don't know your dynamic with your fiance. I don't know why I'm taking your side on this one right now. I mean, it's a podcast after all. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people take the bus, and you can't know how, like, what bus routes you need to take. You like all sorts. It's just, I don't even know what you could do without a phone. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I explained it any more eloquently than that when I talked to you.
No, I mean, if you think about, like, how do you apply for housing?
Yeah.
You need to use your ID, but like, how do you literally submit the application or find which shelters are open when and where and all that kind of stuff? Like, literally accessing any of the resources that you need to get out of homelessness. It's going to be almost impossible to do it without the internet and without the phone.
Yeah, information is like a million times more important to an unhoused person than it is to a housed person.
Yeah, and just making it clear, like this, like the cell phone is like not a luxury item. It's actually a necessity to then, it's basically the center of the spider web that branched out to all the other things that they need.
Yeah.
So he sounds like a kid who's trying to talk to his mom into not taking his cell phone. He's like, this isn't for fun. Okay? I run my business on this, Mom. I need this phone.
I actually convinced my mom to get me a BlackBerry in senior year of high school. I'm like, I got to answer college emails. She's like, you got your age in the ACT. You're not going to college. And I'm like, but I'll never know if I don't get those emails. You know what I mean?
Mom, I'm getting contracts on it. I got my contracts, Mom.
And they send the college emails over BBM for some reason. Yeah.
I do want to go back to something that we were talking about earlier, where you're talking about fear and people, a lack of empathy coming from the presence of fear. Is there any truth, or is there any validity from having some fear of having paraphernalia? Like if you're raising kids and they're using a sidewalk and now there's paraphernalia on the sidewalk, or people who from the outside seem emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous. Like on a gut level, if you see someone screaming and there's no one else around, that's going to create that's an act of aggression. You're going to be scared of that, you know?
Right.
Even as like a full grown man, you know, if I see someone yelling and I'm walking down the sidewalk, I want
pussy?
a little bit. Yeah.
You're fucking 6'4".
Oh, yeah.
Fuck?
No,
Well,
that was a joke. That's probably, I might get in trouble for that one.
So Julian is saying we should fight then. From what I'm hearing,
No.
he's saying you're a pussy. And
He's saying fight back, literally.
Yeah. I mean, there's needles all over the ground. Just pick one up and fight, man. These are jokes, folks. Those are jokes. Let's say it seriously
now. Cut out
now.
all the part where you're saying it's a joke. This is a hit piece.
Please. I did have a moment where I was like, what if this is some like hyper right wing gotcha stuff? I was like, I don't think it will be, but I kind of got excited. I was like, that could be kind of fun.
Keep that for a private life.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you should do.
Also, I do love how like after the intro to make, and you know, welcome to Sam Vinnie Save the World. This is with homelessness, and then it cuts to you in a fucking James Brown t-shirt.
Hey, Macy Gray's on the back. Macy Gray's
really?
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
This is
why is Macy Gray?
Because I got this just a few weeks ago, but it's a vintage shirt that commemorates a tour that the two of them did. They went to 3 cities.
What?
New York City.
Macy Gray, I try to say goodbye.
Yeah, she's one of the greats.
Yeah, she's great.
New York City, Los Angeles, California, and Lancaster, California. Those are when you're doing a big, I think this might have been the last time he really toured.
Yeah.
And so obviously he had to go to the 3 big markets.
No joke.
New York, LA, and Lancaster.
Lancaster.
Yeah.
No joke, I would kill to see that show.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would love to. I don't remember. Oh, we were talking about fear. Let me actually answer that one for real instead of. You
showed your true colors.
Podcast. No, please. Credits start rolling. Why do you have so much crew on a podcast?
Water providers.
I think it is 100% valid for anyone to want to live in a clean place, and I mean to separate them into the condoms, needles of it all. That's what you hear a lot of complaints about, and then like people having a mental health crisis. Yes, it is totally reasonable to want that. And that's something that I think is solvable before homelessness is solvable. Like it's actually like we actually do the Mid-City West Neighborhood Council does these things called Project Sparkle, which that's a nice name.
Love that.
And
it's where they execute homeless people.
It is unfortunately where they do that. No, everyone like they get trash bags and little grabbers.
We had 5 sparkles today.
Even with the joke, we'll have like this is just a joke.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Asterisk, disclaimer.
Yeah, that you're gonna have to be real heavy with that button. All over there. Yeah. No, but I didn't. I thought it was funny and clearly a joke. Project Sparkle is they just say, oh, here's a place where there's a lot of like we did one on Fairfax from Beverly to Melrose. Ton of trash all over the place. It's not nearly all related to unhoused people. It's just like probably a lot of it high schoolers. Yeah. And so those darn high schoolers. Now, if we could execute them,
I'm on board with that.
Yeah. No, but
that's our next podcast.
Yeah.
Hold on. That's it.
But yeah, it's just like a service day, classic. You know, your whatever, like Eagle Scout, like YMCA service day. Hey, we're just gonna clean up trash.
Yeah.
And like
DUI.
Exactly. Just a lot of DUI is a prereq to serve on a neighborhood council.
There's a lot of people pulling up and parking on the curb.
But no, I think that either, better is like funding sanitation a little bit better so that there could be spot cleans like that more often, or even just like coordinating more service days like that. Like that's, you don't have to solve homelessness to pick up some needles and garbage bag or whatever fast food bags on the ground. So I think that's valid. People should want that, and they shouldn't wait until homelessness is solved to get the solution to that, because that's going to take time and just point blank period. Like it's not. So that's
on the sweeps though. They come in like hazmat suits. Or the ones, or I guess I'm just speaking from the one I saw. There was an underpass that I live next to where, like, when they would come to do the cleaning, like we saw the cleaners in like hazmat, like ET style suits.
They don't have the full headgear, but they do have I don't think they're official hazmat. I don't think you could work with napalm with that kind of stuff or whatever you normally use.
But straight from the nuclear facility.
But all you really need is rubber gloves. Like on the Project Sparkle, it's just like, hey, here everyone gets a trash bag, a grabber, and some rubber gloves, and go and pick shit up. So like, there's something in between not servicing at all and having everyone move their shit and destabilize their lives a little bit more. So I think totally valid, and I'm always for practical solutions to that kind of stuff. And then on the other hand, yes, everyone should always be mindful of their own safety. I am not saying, and I actually one time, I think it was like, you'll see over the summer when it gets really, really hot, like a lot of, you'll see something somebody created on Canva that's like, hey, hand out like cold water bottles to your unhoused neighbors. And that's good. But when I was like posting about it to my dad, who worked with unhoused people for long enough that he calls them homeless. And so do I sometimes. But he was like, just be careful, because like he was basically saying, he wasn't telling me to be careful as much as be careful, making it sound like everyone should just run up to every homeless person they see. And that's,
how can I help?
Absolutely true.
Hey, you stop.
But really, there's a lot of definitely don't bother somebody when you're trying to help them, of course. But also, use good judgment. And if you're in a dark alley and there's on a block where there's not a lot of other people, and you see someone screaming and they're near you, don't be like, it would not be woke of me to cross the street. Like, do what, like,
it would be woke of me to fight them. Let's go. Put them up.
You really want to fight. You really want to fight somebody.
I'm going off what you said.
I don't remember saying
follow your lead here.
But I mean, like, and that's why, that's sort of my, before I was on the neighborhood council, which again is really not real government, but it kind of is. I considered myself like pure activist, so to speak. And now I am like, okay, I understand that there is a real need for activism, and activism has from any direction, activism is an important thing that can get things done. But now I am in a specific, at least when I'm on the neighborhood council, when I'm there in that capacity, I am trying to solve problems. And I think of activism as like, hey, you're trying to spread the word about something, or you're trying to strategically obstruct something evil going on. That's not where, like, that's not, I don't think there's a place for that as much in, I guess there might be, but I don't think there's as much in government, because especially local government, because like we kind of get to do whatever we want. And so when someone comes with a problem, if people say they're scared, I'm saying, okay, I think this letter's not the best version of this letter, but if it's going to make you feel a little bit less scared and feel heard and trust that somebody's actually trying to do stuff, then by all means, let's get it through.
It's almost like it's almost like you work in the ER, and like, you're like, why are all these people getting shot? And you're like, I don't know, but I have to stop the bleeding with this dude who's right in front of me right now.
Right. I mean, that's how I've heard just like the homelessness problem described writ large, is like there are a lot of things that if we had the time, that it would be cool to figure out what the actual like perfect solution to this would be, but it would be impossible to enact, and it would take forever.
Yeah, you had sent me something that had talked about the discrepancy between managing homelessness and solving homelessness, and how those are two very different things.
Yeah, how anybody who talks about solving homelessness in a real way, they're talking about trying to end chronic homelessness, which means someone living on the street for years, versus, there will always be, like, it's easier to.
We're all going to be homeless at some point. College, come on, college. We're all a little bit homeless sometimes.
I think it's the same thing that you're referencing, but they said we're trying to solve homelessness, not poverty, and like. It would be great to solve poverty, but that's an even bigger problem. And solving homelessness is kind of the first step to that, because just when you are homeless or when you see homeless people, I think it's hard to focus on everything else.
It's the poverty-riest.
You got this.
Poverty-riest.
It's the poverty-riest.
Yeah, poverty-riest.
So, like, let's say someone's homeless. They come to you and they're like, "Hey, listen, I'm addicted to X, Y, and Z. I would like to get help and go to rehab." Are there facilities and like sponsors to sponsor this person to get help and start to fight their addiction?
Yes. I mean, that is so far it has never really happened like that, where somebody comes up and says, we would talk to people when we were doing the service days, which we're trying to get started back up. I mean, the shower, like, connect days. I didn't have someone explicitly say, "Hi, I'm addicted to this and I would like to go into rehab right now." So that's just not a problem that I sought the solution for yet. Okay. What I think would probably happen in a case like that is I would call around, I would find out what the path for someone like that is, and it would probably start with, we need their license, and it's going to take a few days or a couple weeks or a few months. So I don't know for certain.
And then it goes to, okay, cool. So it's going to take 2-3 weeks. Do you have a phone? No. Okay, I'll submit a phone. Where will you be? And then it's like basically the circle of, where will you be when this stuff comes readily available? Can I find you again? At that point, will you be willing again to go into rehab, or maybe you won't be willing to go into rehab? So it's kind of like a time / kind of hoops and loops you have to jump through just to get the thing going.
And it's this is sort of out of order, but there's a concept called housing first that most people agree or everything I've read says this is how it actually gets solved. That's what they were talking about in the Houston article, which is basically you don't have to, like, let's get you into housing and then we'll deal with your substance abuse issues. We'll deal with and the metaphor that they said is like, if someone's drowning and you're like, well, before I help you out, I need to teach you how to swim. And so it's what happens much more often is somebody says, "Oh, I'd love to get into housing. I would love to." And sometimes they're open to a shelter. Sometimes they've had a bad experience with a shelter. Sometimes they're open to going someplace else, like far away, like, this is pure example, Azusa, like someplace very far away. But like technically still in LA. I think Azusa is in LA County. I'm not positive. And they're like, well, no, I have a community here. I know, like, my sister lives a half mile away. You're gonna make a joke. Go. No, I want to know.
Stop myself. Yeah.
No, I want to. I need to know.
That's the thing about sitting with a comic. You can see that. As I dissociate for a second, wondering how I can make that joke.
He's like, "Well, I've checked out, just waiting for I can slip in my punchline."
You were doing the double Dutch, figuring out where do I get in there.
Yeah. I didn't think it would be worth it. It wasn't funny enough to.
Steam's coming out.
Yeah. But
it's funny that you can see it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I know
you weren't hiding it very well.
No,
I know, but even sometimes you can just see the flicker in the eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I smile when I know it's going to be stupid.
Right.
I'm like, is it stupid to the point where this is even?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. I understand those a lot.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I was. We were talking about. Oh yeah.
Someone's sister.
Yeah. Say. Okay, now I'm starting to zero in on what it might be. So people aren't. I think people have legitimate reason to not want to go to a shelter that is an hour away. You're still thinking about it.
I'm laughing because you called me out. Now I feel like I'm not allowed to laugh, and that's making me laugh.
You're allowed to laugh. Okay, I'll stop. And yeah, I think that's something that people. What was the original question? I was just saying that sometimes people ask for shelter or ask for housing, and they'll be into shelter, and they'll say no shelter, or they might say I'm not going to go to a shelter that far away because if it's a terrible experience, I won't. I'll be stranded. I won't be able to get back. I won't know how to get back.
It was the housing first, basically.
Yes.
Homelessness or unhousingness causes. I'm trying to be woke. Causes.
And I appreciate my man bun. Thanks you.
Another question about that too.
Actually, it said thank you. I heard it.
That's
causes
our guest next week.
Causes. It's like a Harry
Just
Potter.
Julian sitting backwards.
It's like in Voldemort.
He unwraps it for a face. It's just another dude with a man bun.
Yeah, what up?
Our goal is to give every homeless person a matcha tea latte, just to. But basically, it causes trauma, so they want them to get housed first before they solve the additional issue of whatever they're going through. But the trouble in, okay, we can get you housed, immediately, but it's, an hour away or it's in a different community, and basically breaking them away from something they've already become familiar with. Kind of like not the only thing they have, but, a structure they've kind of built that in order to house them, you could remove that kind of structure.
Right. And not always just something they've become familiar with while living on the street. Sometimes it is genuinely like they were housed here. They lived in the apartment, a half mile from here, and now they're on the streets because there's there's obviously the big narrative of like these people are coming from other cities and other states because they hear we treat homeless people so well, and like people do come from other places, but I forget the statistic, but I have read that it is overwhelmingly people who are from California and or from Los Angeles who are on the streets.
I went to Skid Row High School. I went to Skid Row Elementary.
The guy using the shoe as a telephone was my principal.
What was their mascot? That's Skid Row.
Nothing that I could possibly say. Why would you pin me out?
I have
that? Yeah, that's.
I pinned you out because I thought about making it, then I said, nope, I'm not going to say that, but I feel like he might want to.
A teddy bear. All right. Okay. A teddy bear. Yeah. I feel it's hard to not feel overwhelmed by the issue and feel like maybe there's more, that the bucket's getting overflowing quicker than it can be, or that there's more water coming into the boat than we can pail out.
I think currently that is the case. I mean, I spoke with someone. This was not an unhoused person, but I won't. I know someone who has worked in the government in California, maybe it's one of the cities that we're familiar with, and they said at some point, I think LA might be ungovernable. And I was like, that's a scary thing to hear from somebody who works in government in California. Wow. So I don't say that to say we should all throw up our hands.
Portland or something like that.
Well, no, but I think it's worth knowing that everyone is overwhelmed by this, and it's easy. No, I mean, like it's
none of us have any idea what to do.
We do have ideas though, and I think it's. I mean, I deal with a lot of things in my life where I realize, I've been so dealing with the fact that I'm overwhelmed that I haven't actually tried to solve the problem. And I think that can happen.
Your hairline disagrees with that statement. All right. This guy's sitting with a 3 head over here telling us that he's stressed out. No, I'm just kidding.
Like when my bathroom gets too dirty, instead of cleaning it, I just shower with the lights off. I kind of just remove the issue until.
And I think in some ways for a long time, Los Angeles was showering with the lights off, and we've just said, okay, let's fucking turn the lights on.
Yeah. And it's like, goo. Oh my God. What is.
Yeah. And people also talk about how it's not, the problem hasn't necessarily gotten worse, but it's gotten more visible.
Yeah.
And so that is something where it might feel more overwhelming to people like us who are just seeing it more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually a problem that's not getting better. And like,
it's something I think about every day now, and it's not something I thought about every day when I first moved here.
Right.
Like I think about homeless people every single day now, just in the day-to-day life and interactions with them.
Yeah, and I think I assume most people in LA do.
Yeah.
I don't know if most people in New York do. I know
so like I'm from the East Coast and I used to go to New York, almost every weekend. For some reason, they, for lack of a better term, blend in more because it's more of like a walking, busy, in my opinion, like a walking, busy city kind of thing. You just kind of it's so fast paced. We're out here, generally speaking, if you're walking, it's a very like one-on-one interaction kind of thing.
Right.
And there isn't enough like background noise or ancillary things to distract you from that person.
Or it's also just like such an unfriendly city for pedestrians that already walking here is
if
difficult.
Someone's screaming at you, you're like, at least you're talking to me.
Yeah. You're like, buddy, this is the only sidewalk. Like, there's no other sidewalk I can get to.
Right.
There's about 4 lanes of traffic in between me and the other side of the street. So, yeah.
New York also has a right to shelter, which means that if somebody wants shelter, they can get into shelter that night.
Oh,
and it's not necessarily all high quality shelter. And they've had a lot of, I think everywhere where there's a lot of shelters, you're going to have some shitty shelters. But I forget exactly what the statistic is for LA, but I remember it's only New York's unsheltered homeless population is like 4%. Like it's like 4% of their homeless population is on the street without a shelter that they're going to at night. And LA's is, I forget, but it's between like 40 and 60%. Like it's like a massive
the weather
difference.
isn't even permitting in New York.
Exactly.
You
yeah.
would literally die. Yeah.
A lot do in the winter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
That was actually
in Chicago too.
Yeah.
I'm from DC or outside DC, and the place that my dad worked at, it was started because I believe a homeless woman died of hypothermia in Georgetown. And so all the churches were like, we're all these like, we live in the richest like neighborhood in the most powerful city in the world. Why don't we try to do something about it? So,
so is California not building, or not, I guess maybe not California, but Los Angeles maybe, are they not building as many shelters for them because of reasons maybe like, well, real estate's so expensive. Who's going to invest in an asset that's not going to earn them capital?
I think people would more likely be trying to build more, because shelters are, the way I understand it, and I could be wrong, but shelters, like you could like build a place specifically to be a shelter, but it's more like, oh, we're converting this facility into a shelter. Like, I mean, the place that when my dad did the shelter over the winter, it would be like the church auditorium. They would set up a bunch of cots. Okay. So that's like what a shelter is going to look like. A shelter is going to look more like a room with a bunch of cots in it. As I understand it, don't like do your own research on that part of it. But what people would love to build is more public housing, supportive housing, affordable housing. And yes, it is hard to, if people are going to build in California, they want to be able to make their money back. And it goes back to the zoning also.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't remember. I heard somebody say, and I haven't checked it for myself, but that 75% of, I think, LA County is zoned for single family homes. And so you can't build another unit on that. And it's getting a little bit better where you can build an ADU, additional dwelling unit, or they call it like a grandparent suite or something like that. Like just a back house. And something I learned recently is that basically building any housing is good for homelessness, because like in a perfect world, if you're going to build a building with 60 units in it, I would love, 10 to 20 of those units to be super low income designated, so that like, and there are ways to do this and they get tax breaks for it. So they do it sometimes. But
and it would just be comics and homeless people.
They're always going to do,
that are qualified that make the cut.
Hey, and that sounds like a fun, sitcom. but that's my idea. Okay, you guys can be
stolen
co-producers.
I think collectively it was our idea. Yeah.
Nope, fully 100% mine.
Yeah, it was a brainstorm from all of us. I'd say, yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about it
I think
offline.
Cheers, but 7-Eleven.
It's actually a great idea. I think that's Kim's Convenience, actually, but it's Canadian. So who's gonna watch that?
Fuck them.
Yeah.
If it was a funny show, we'll just take their idea too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just copy their
Great point.
episodes.
I don't know if it was funny because it was Canadian, so I didn't watch it. I got burned by Schitt's Creek. No, it's fine. It was an okay show.
Principle.
What the hell was I saying? I was saying that even if you build something with zero super low income, just having more housing, it's just supply and demand. We need more housing, because if there's more housing, then things can be priced a little bit less competitively, and everything it gets cheaper. Mm-hmm. But yes, it would be great to have. But yeah, that's the problem with building, is people want to profit.
Yeah.
Better communication, more housing. Those are probably the two biggest things that you're saying that are needed right now from your perspective.
And better on the ground services. I think that's easier to do than we're allowing it to be right now. Like I don't know. Like the Center in Hollywood is a great organization, and if we could have one of those available, like, every couple miles, which is really just all you really need is an office and another bigger room for people to sit and have coffee and maybe use the internet if they want to. Like that would do a lot, just to have for people to have someplace that they know they can go.
Yeah.
That isn't, a 30-minute walk if you're in a wheelchair or whatever.
What's the biggest what's preventing us from getting that?
I don't know. That's something that I really don't know the answer to. I think there's a lack of will. I mean, like, you have to. What's preventing us from doing that is whatever's preventing any nonprofit from being effective, and it's probably expensive. And to have one in every area, it's probably a little bit cheaper in Hollywood than it would be in Mid-City West, and even cheaper in there than like Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you'd have to get 100 nonprofits with brick and mortar locations off the ground, which is a good goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, not something that's going to be like, oh, here's an idea. Great, let's do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Damn. One more question: homelessness or unhoused?
I don't think it really matters.
Why was the new term created?
I can't remember. I don't remember. I don't know if I ever knew, really. I know it was just like,
you invented that, right?
It was you, wasn't it? It was a bun. Yeah.
Oh, we'll save it for next week.
Save that for next week.
Yeah. We'll talk to him.
I think it's because, like, I mean, it's gonna sound annoying no matter how I put it, but I think it was probably like, oh, but like, everyone should have a home, and like if they live in a tent, like that's their home, and like we shouldn't use our words to take away their home. I know I have seen myself multiple unhoused or homeless people roll their eyes hard when they hear the word unhoused. So it's like
there's a lot of pride in like I can't imagine there's like a lot of pride in like the tent or whatever that they're.
No, I mean they're I'm sure there is, but it's like, I don't know, if somebody, I have not ever been in a situation where somebody said it's actually unhoused, unless it's a comic making a joke about people like that. Like that's the only situation where I've seen, and by people like that I mean people who say unhoused, not homeless people. But yeah, I try to say unhoused, and sometimes I say homeless, and I don't worry about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
And then I guess in closing, because we're basically a little over an hour now, if there's people out there that want to get involved and want to help, what are some ways or websites or things of that nature they can look up and get involved?
I recommend looking into your neighborhood council and they probably have a committee that is dealing with homelessness, and just going to a committee meeting and seeing what they're working on, and seeing what they're working on, seeing what they're arguing about, seeing what they need help with, but just starting someplace. Like that was me with Shower of Hope, as I DM'd them on Facebook and they're like, yeah, you can come volunteer. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to get involved in something like that. So like, if you're like, hey, I want to get involved, and I've had multiple people say this to me, it's like, I want to get involved in that stuff. What do I do? Just like be a little bit relentless in finding a place that will let you either volunteer and if you go and you're like, I feel like I don't have any work to do here, but they still want you there. Keep hanging out, like, whatever, you go once a month, you go once a week, you will learn, even if they have too many hands. And at some point there will you might see something, oh, I think we can do this a little bit better. Like, here's an idea. Or, but obviously, defer to the people who are actually running the operation.
Yeah.
Or you'll just like understand the problem a little bit more, and you might realize this isn't an say fucking you're volunteering at Shower of Hope, and there's this other organization that like makes sandwiches, and they drop off sandwiches when you're there, and you might be like, oh, I love cooking, or I love like that sounds more my speed. I can make sandwiches at home and drop stuff off. But just like going and being someplace, and people can DM me and ask.
Sounds like a choice my dog would make. He's like, I hate baths, but I love sandwiches. That's okay, cool.
And your dog should get involved.
Oh,
he's a bad dog if he's not.
Yeah, no, he's involved. Yeah. He's involved. Yeah.
Good.
And he says only unhoused. He doesn't say.
Thank you. Yeah.
Julian, thank you so much. Really
thank you for
appreciate
having
you taking
me.
the time.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.